Hi, and welcome to ThreatTraq Essentials, where we take a look at some basic, everyday cybersecurity lessons that we can learn from this week's ThreatTraq stories. I'm here with Joe Harden. Joe was on the show this week. How you doing, Joe?
Good. Doing well.
Good. Let's talk about some of the stories. The first one was one that Stan brought to us, and that was about a bounty that's being offered for some cyber criminals who have been operating a botnet for a long time. Tell me about that.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of an older botnet, so something that's not really in the news today, but the FBI just released a bounty, which means they're willing to pay, a pretty good sum to find these individuals and sort of bring them to justice. And we sort of talked about how, the messages, even though this is activity that happened a while back, that they're saying, we have long memories and we're not going to forget. So, the idea is, even if you're doing this criminal activity and you think you've moved on or you evaded law enforcement, there's still cases that are outstanding, and they can get to a step like this where they're trying to track down individuals. So, kind of interesting.
Any lessons that people can draw from the story?
Lesson, I think you can learn that law enforcement is looking for the people behind these malicious activities in the network, and I think we don't always try to do attribution. Attribution is when you try to find the person or the country or the group behind an attack, but the law enforcement is out there, and they're trying to find, in some cases, if they have the right evidence and the right ability to track some of this activity back to individuals, they can do that. And this is a case where that step has been taken.
Now, Jim brought us a story about a vulnerability that was found actually in a hacking competition. I may not realize what that is. Tell me, what is a hacking competition?
Hacking competition, it's people come together, and usually there's a challenge, or there's a certain type of software that's put in front of people. Sometimes it's new software that's come out, and researchers or students or whoever signs up for the competition will come and they'll compete, and there'll often be a score and rankings based on how many challenges they can produce, or the strength of their code that they produce.
And they're working for good, right? To find vulnerabilities so that developers can know about them and correct them.
Right. It's kind of like the same concept as like the bug bounty program, where there'll be a payment or a reward for finding something and releasing it, not keeping it in the dark web or selling it on the
right. So this is a case they actually found a vulnerability that was. Tell me about that.
Yeah, this was a vulnerability with the VMware ESXi. It's sort of like the kernel, the controller of the VMware stack, and they were able to escape it, which is kind of like break that piece of VMware.
If this had happened out in the wild, someone could have made a lot of money exploiting this for bad purposes.
On the show, Stan had said it could have been the $200,000 they won in the competition, which is the biggest award they gave out. That on the open market, this could have gone for 10 times that or more. So definitely a positive reward, but not the value of doing this sort of illegally.
Now, you brought us a story which is very interesting, because often on the show we advise people to use a VPN, a virtual private network, because it's a safe tunnel into your network, perhaps at work if you're working from home.
Right.
But this is something different, where there's a vulnerability.
Well, I mean, it's a vulnerability that speaks to kind of the predictability of a VPN tunnel. So if you're doing VPN from a coffee shop or an internet cafe, there's some elements of that VPN tunnel that, if the address that you're using to connect can be predicted, and the right messages can be sent to you with that predicted IP address, then maybe all the characteristics of your VPN tunnel can be predicted, and then a malicious actor can start sort of taking over your session. Pretty advanced attack, but really the takeaway here is that even a secure VPN tunnel isn't always going to keep you from really advanced attacks.
So then what advice can we give people?
you're always vulnerable. Do what you can. You know, there are certain ways to configure your VPN session, encrypt certain characteristics. Maybe be kind of careful about where you're VPNing. Don't necessarily trust a VPN in a public place. But really, I do expect that as more details come out about this attack, that we will see patches. Whereas right now, it's still a little bit unknown, and nothing can really be patched because the people who wrote this, released this vulnerability, are still kind of holding some of it to themselves before they release it. I think that vendors will patch. So, you know, that I expect the advice down the road to be patch, update your software.
As we often say.
Right, yeah. I mean, it's
So,
pretty
well,
standard.
thanks for being here, Joe, and thank you for watching. As always, you can click on the link below to go to a playlist and take a deeper look at any of these stories. And we'll see you next time.